they could very well tie all of that together into a final, maybe, I feel like I've seen all the vision that they've published, right? But whether they can actually pull that off is another story. But if they do, then like I said, I think that's a huge threat to page builders.
It's always good to get somebody else's opinion that you don't necessarily agree with. So a few weeks ago, I sat down with Kevin Geary. You might know Kevin from his YouTube channel, where he focuses primarily these days on the bricks builder. He has been a vocal critic of the Gutenberg project. So in this interview, I asked him lots of questions about where he thought Gutenberg was going and also the future on page builders. And there's some really interesting content in here. You will probably be surprised by some of the things that Kevin has got to say about Gutenberg and page builders. So I hope you enjoy this one, and I'll see you at the end for a quick catch up. I want to pick your brain on where you think we are in the market. And I want to cover two aspects of that, really. One is the agency market, which I know you're kind of it feels like to me you're deep into, and the DIY market, and look at both those things. And so if you were going to say where we're at in terms of kind of the WordPress market as of today, because I'm going to ask you about where we think this is going to go. Can you give me your kind of positioning statement, both in terms of the agency market and the DIY market, of where we are now?
It's really tough right now because we're in such a, it almost feels like, I don't know, our industry always feels like turmoil in a way. Like there's just, it's such a rapidly evolving industry that we choose to work in. And so we constantly have to put up with like, oh, the next thing that's happening, the next thing that's happening, the next thing that's happening. I mean, obviously, right now there is, and this really is for DIY versus agency, everybody's kind of having to deal with this, but you have these page builder layers that are off to the side over here. And they range all the way from beginner to an advanced pro user. And then there's the WordPress native environment. There's Gutenberg, then but Gutenberg and WordPress native environment is in pieces as well. It's like, then there's this FSE piece, there's the block editor piece, there's the whole backend dashboard. Now that's getting redesigned. And then the question is like, are they going to be able to bring all of these things together into a seamless experience that actually works for everybody? And if that does happen, then I think page builders are a little bit in trouble, right? There could be a very big transition away from page builders into WordPress native. But if WordPress continues to not really be able to piece everything together very seamlessly, then I think the page builders are going to grow, that people are going to turn towards them more. And that's kind of where I see the market for everybody right now is it's just up in the air. We don't really know.
Yeah. And so if we were going to take the kind of, let's focusing on the agency stuff at the moment. If you look at some of the tools that you're kind of using on your YouTube channel, which for me, it looks like Bricks, you're big into Bricks and some of those types of tools. How do you see that playing against kind of the tools that already have sort of market dominance, like Elementor, I guess, How do you see that playing out over the next year? And are you seeing a lot of, because Bricks is still, I don't know the numbers, but it still feels like Bricks is a fairly kind of, it's growing, but it's a niche tool at the moment. Do you think we're in a different place? Like for me, it feels like we'll never have another Elementor, just in terms of where we are in the sort of evolution of WordPress. Do you agree with that, or do you think there's still room for somebody to take on that mantle?
I think there's always room. Back when Yahoo was like #1 and big, I think a lot of people would have said maybe I don't see room for another Yahoo like thing to come. Like it's just a search engine. I mean, what are we talking about here, right? And then of course Google came along and became a gazillion times bigger. So I think that there's definitely room for it. In terms of what Elementor has been able to do, obviously they've built a massive community and a massive ecosystem, and they're very, very, very successful. And they came along at a time where there wasn't a lot of options for what you were doing with, I mean, they kind of introduced, they weren't the only ones, but they were in that early wave of introducing page builders to WordPress. And so at the time it was phenomenal. It was fantastic. You had Divi, you had Elementor. There wasn't a ton of other options, Visual Composer or whatever. And the real challenge though is they've I think they've struggled to really keep up, and they've struggled to meet the a lot of the, more professional standards that a lot of people are paying attention to these days. Now, it's hard for me to say. You're right that Bricks is niche, Oxygen is niche. Bricks is growing rapidly, which is fantastic.
You know what the numbers are for Bricks at the moment?
I
Like the
don't.
last number I looked up, and I think I was looking at Built With or something. It was like 30,000 installs or something along that nature. Which is
Yeah,
kind of what I was kind of guessing it was that kind of number. But do you have any more insight into that?
I don't have any insights on the numbers. I don't look at the numbers all that much. It would concern me if the numbers were going down. So the fact that they're growing, that's all I need to know. Because I don't, and from a content creator standpoint, I mean, it would be better for me to make content for Elementor or Divi or like some gigantic page builder, but I make content for the page builders that I believe in the most, that I believe are the best tools for the work that we do. And so the raw numbers don't matter all that much to me. I do want to see that the page builder is growing, and it is hard for me to make a complete assessment because I live in the community where everybody is using these niche tools. And to me, it feels like everybody's using them. But if I look outside of them, it's clear that not everybody is using them. So, I do have to step back from time to time and take a look at the bigger picture, which I'm always trying to do as much as I possibly can. But I'm also trying to see where things are probably going to go over the next 2 to 3 years and the possibilities as well. And I think that when we look at the question of will Bricks ever be like an Elementor, or could it ever be like an Elementor? Yes, the answer is yes. It could be like an Elementor, and people will say, "Well, it's too technical, or it's not beginner friendly enough, so it can't ever amass that kind of an ecosystem." And to that, I always point at Webflow, where Webflow said, "Look, we're going to release a professional page building tool, and the difference is we're going to teach you how to use it." I mean, they've spent millions of dollars on education on how to use their tool. And because of that, they've built up a massive ecosystem. I think they're valued at something like $4 billion.
So it seems like we're at a place where we've got these two kind of completely separate things going on at the moment. We've got kind of what you'd call the professional tools like Bricks and the other page builders that are coming along. And conversely, we've got these completely no-code kind of AI tools that are going in completely separation. So can you talk around some of that stuff and whether you think there's a lack of a middle way in that at the moment, or do you think that's the way we're gonna head off for a while?
That's very interesting. And that's another layer. So we talked about, here's the pieces of WordPress over here. Can they actually come together and form something cohesive? Then there's page builders over here. And then let's just throw in the added layer of AI. And the AI could come into WordPress native. The AI can come into the page builders. There could be a whole new page builder. It's 100% built on AI. Framer just released their AI builder or whatever. I
saw Wix have released something today or yesterday as well. I think that's coming out.
Yeah. And right now, it's almost like it's just a marketing push. It's almost like, well, talk about me too. Like we'll throw AI into our thing because it's an easy way to get PR and press. And I don't know how useful it is really inside of these tools, but they want people to know that they've got their eye on the AI ball, right? And so they're putting it in, they're doing these releases. I mean, you can go to the Framer AI. I've seen some content creators use it. I used it myself. I wasn't very impressed with what it produced. And so when I look at AI, I look at AI as an assistant. So if you're doing really difficult work and challenging work and you need to look something up, for example, well, if ChatGPT has the answer and I can have a conversation with ChatGPT about what I'm trying to get help with versus just randomly looking through documentation somewhere, a lot of times I can get the answer faster and easier. And that really helps me in my day-to-day journey. AI can only replace one of those right now. If you're the most basic process, which is like buy a theme for a theme, customize the colors, drop in the client's content, you're done. AI's got you in the next year, 2 years. Okay. You just go ahead and retire now. If that's your process, AI's got you. If you're in that middle tier, AI is coming for you next. They're going to replace enough of you to where people are like, okay, like I'm probably going to go that. Even if I don't get a perfect outcome, I'm just going to go this route. But if you have the real, like, tried and true professional detailed process that looks at all of these different areas, there is no way to communicate. It doesn't matter how smart AI is. It requires the client to be smart enough to talk to AI in a specific way at that point, which most of them can't do. And so you're not in danger of being replaced by AI if you're a true professional. If you're just an amateur, if you're just kind of, it's like, it's how the iPhone camera, when it got good enough, it replaced the most basic photographers out there. Photographers who just know how to point and like frame things properly and then throw a filter on in Photoshop or Lightroom. All those people are getting replaced. But the true professional who's setting up all of these lights, I mean, Photoshop can't come in and just set up like custom, lighting for you on your photo shoot. It can mimic some things, but it just can't do what true professional photographers can do. And I think we're in the same boat. If you are a true professional, AI is going to be very tough to replace you.
Have you thought about, I've put the question to you, have you thought about, like, if you were going to break down the WordPress market share in terms of, if you looked at the WordPress market from actually who's anyone that pays for a WordPress website, and you said that's the pie we're talking about, how much of that market is potentially under threat, forgetting process at this point, under threat from sort of no-code tools coming our way? So we're talking about simple, maybe one-page websites or simple brochure websites. You've got a handle on what size of that market might be disrupted. Because my sense, I asked this question on a few sort of fairly niche Facebook groups like Dynamic WordPress and a few other these groups.
Yep.
And I think those guys are very skewed towards quite technical builds, and they were coming about 50-60% brochure websites. My guess is it's probably higher in terms of the type of websites that are being built that are potentially going to be disrupted. Have you got a sense of what that looks like?
I would probably agree with that. It might even be higher. I don't know. But the thing about being replaced by AI, I mean, let's just use the concept of a brochure website, right?
Yeah.
Or just being replaced by a lot of what WordPress is going to allow people to do with patterns and drag and drop and templates and all this other stuff. It's the same thing that goes back to Wix and it goes back to Squarespace. Like, we all know that these tools are marketed to people who have no idea what they're doing. They're marketed to, a lot of small business owners. It's like, hey, you don't have a budget to do hire an agency. Come on over to Wix. Come on over to Squarespace. Look at all these templates we have. Just drop one in. Just put your content in. Da 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 da. And that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, if Wix and Squarespace work that well to allow a business owner to come in and go from nothing to a full brochure website, you know what it still doesn't solve? It still doesn't solve the fact that they don't have any traffic. It still doesn't solve the fact that nobody knows about them and nobody can find them online. It still doesn't solve the fact that if people do happen to arrive, the copy is just not all that great and people just aren't all that interested in doing business with them. And so it goes down the list of, you checked the box that was, I use this no-code tool or this AI to check the box of my business needs a website. But there's still a question that has to be asked after that. And that's, do you have any results? Does the website do what you wanted it to do for your business? And even when these business owners or these businesses hire people in our industry to build them a brochure website, a lot of times after that's done, they say, well, where are my results?
I've been really surprised by the amount of page builders that have been released lately. They seem to be coming out all the time that seem to be kind of hitting the same market spot as each other. There's a lot of Me Too page builders coming out. And I watched one of your videos the other day where you said, somebody asked you, I think on a live stream, why don't you bring out a product? And you said, well, I'm not going to bring out one exactly the same as those. And there was a little glint in your eye of a product today. So two questions. One is, why are people producing the same product over and over again? And two, what would be an interesting product in that market that Kevin might think about releasing?
Really good question. But nothing I'm going to say is official. And I'm just throwing out ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
So to answer question number one, I think I have a very clear answer for it. I think it's accurate. I think it's true. So I'm just going to throw it out there. There's a lot of people who create tools and software because they see an opportunity to make money. They see an opening in the market. Hey, page builder, look at all these people using page builders. Let's go build our own page builder. We'll make $1 million, whatever. And that happens in every industry. This is not just our industry. But then there's people who make tools and software because they identify an actual problem. And then they're like, I think I can solve that problem, or I think I can do that problem. Like I can approach that problem from a different angle and provide a lot of value to users. So that's why I'm going to use to build the software. And in the back of their mind, obviously they're not a charity. And so, you know, this is where ACSS came along, right? Automatic CSS. So I identified, I was using other frameworks, and I said, look, there's got to be a better approach than that. I mean, we don't have fluid responsive typography and spacing. We don't have ratios. We don't have all this stuff. We don't have a UI dashboard to make this stuff easy to, I think I can solve this problem better. And at the time, again, it was agency work. It was like, we're working in the real world and we have this big challenge. Okay, let's create a tool that solves this big challenge for people who do work in the real world, of which I am. Okay. Other frameworks say, you know what? I think I have an idea for a framework. I don't do work in the real world. I don't have an agency. I don't build sites for people, but I am a developer and I think I can build a good framework. And so they come up with their own concept, and whether it's to make money or not make money, it doesn't really matter. But one big difference is there are people who build software who actually use the software in the real world. And there are people who build software as a theory of like, I think this would work well in the real world, right? And so there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people who just want to cash in on page builders. There's a lot of people who build page builders, but they don't actually build websites. And so we run into a lot of UX issues. And so I'm in I think, you know, what the market is thirsty for is, you know, we don't want investor money building page builders with theory, and we don't want developers who are good developers, but they never built websites for companies before building page. We want somebody who actually builds websites in the real world and who teaches this stuff to build a page builder. And we think it's going to be a much better experience because of what they know about real world workflows. And that's kind of the position that I've been in and why people have been asking for me to build a page builder. Now, that's like, you know, it's just a gigantic project and a gigantic commitment. And yeah. I haven't been ready to say yes and tackle that yet. But I do have tons and tons of ideas of how page builders should behave within a real workflow versus how they behave in what I think is like this theory workflow. You know, a lot of the page builders are just developed by great developers, but these people do not build websites day in and day out for clients. And so a lot of what they do is, well, this is what we think users want, but they just don't know because they don't build the sites.
You could probably label that point at WordPress as well, though, as a whole, in terms of a lot of the people that are developing WordPress aren't actually building sites.
100%. Yeah, it's a big problem. It turns out it's a big problem. Yeah, and we hope that they listen to people that actually do build websites. Yeah. What kind of users are you trying to attract? So if the main base of user that's been attracted is pure beginners who don't really know what they're doing, what kind of feedback are you going to get? Not going to be very valuable, right? And that's what WordPress is doing. That's what the block editor, I mean, they're trying to make it as basic as they possibly can so that anybody can use it. So as somebody who's been asked to build a page builder and undergo a tremendous amount of risk and work, it's tough to ask that right now because of what's happening with FSE and the block editor. And I just saw a redesign. I don't know if it's official or if it was a prototype or whatever of the WordPress dashboard and back end. And it looks to me like if they go that route, and they're able to tie that in with FSE and the block editor and create a truly seamless experience. I mean, they do have patterns, which are very, very promising. They have semi-component based functionality, which is very promising. You know, some of the technical stuff that they're doing is very promising. And so in my mind, if they succeed in pulling all these pieces together that feel all over the place right now, but if they succeed in pulling these things together, that's going to be a very powerful option. And that's probably the direction where we should be focused on using that native environment. That's what our focus should be on. But if they can't manage to pull those things together in a cohesive fashion, then we should go, I think we should go, this is the effort that we're going to give them right now, or the opportunity. This is their one shot, right? If they can't pull this together, I feel like this is a fork in the road for WordPress, where people are just gonna be like, they're gonna lose faith in the teams working on these pieces, and they're gonna go the third-party builder route. 100%. I think that's, it just remains to be seen.
Yeah, it feels like at the moment, because my channel's kind of grown on Gutenberg and do tons of tutorials around block themes, but it feels like we've got the architecture is really solid. The interface is like not pulled together at all. So the learning curve is still incredibly steep for a lot of, well, anyone actually coming to it. They get, probably, if you go and look at it today, you'll be slightly confused.
It's hard for me. It's hard for me to use.
Which is, and I think your point is well made, because there's a real risk. The amount of, because if you go on to GitHub and you look at the amount of work that's gone into 6.3, it's extraordinary. The amount of tickets that they've gone through, the amount of detailed work in the site editor. But for me, unless it solves unless block themes are as easy to use, at least as easy to use as classic themes, then they won't have the take up. And if there isn't the take up, because if you go and look at some of the most popular block themes, there's like Spectral One is currently 200 downloads a day. Frost is about 200 downloads a day. You compare this to things like Generate Press or Astra, which is 7,000 downloads a day. They're just nowhere in the ballpark at the moment of competing with classic themes, which you might expect because of where we are in terms of in terms of the evolution of the site editor. But if it doesn't ever get there will come a point where this effort can't continue along the path without a fundamental change to solving those interface problems. But all the architecture's there. I mean, we've got some really cool API stuff that you can lock into that's not kind of being used at the moment. Do you see that as a risk for? Do you see that coming along the way in terms of block themes?
Yeah, no, I think they are poised to make a really convincing case for why people should ditch page builders and use WordPress native. But making the case and then actually building the environment properly are two very different things. And so we have to see if they're going to be able to pull these things together. And I don't know. I wouldn't say I have a ton of faith. I mean, the faith I do have comes from the fact that they have $1 gazillion to try to, solve the problem with, which is always good. It's always good to have that. And they have a lot of talented people. I think it's going to come down to leadership and just cohesiveness. They've gone in the wrong direction on a few different things, which I've been very vocal about, but they do have a lot of promising architecture there, like you said, but we have to pull it together. I mean, the idea that
Can I ask you a question? What would you, if I gave you the keys to the project, if I said, right, Kevin, you are now product manager of the project, what do you do day one?
Day one, I would say, who is our target user? Because right now, I don't think WordPress has a target user. In fact, in their marketing, they say their target user is everybody. And that is the fastest way to build the most horrible product on the face of the earth, right? Is to say my target user is everybody. And I think that's what the real problem boils down to with the WordPress user experience right now. They don't have a target user. And so they've built a product that kind of sucks for everybody. It kind of does what everybody wants it to do, but it also sucks for everybody.
So who is the target user? Your product manager.
So I'm product manager. Day one, I sit down with the whole team and I say to myself, guys, we have two versions of WordPress. We have WordPress.com and we have WordPress.org. WordPress.com, who is that for? And the team should say, that's for the beginners out there. That's for the Wix crowd. That's for the Squarespace crowd. Fantastic. We're going to build WordPress.com to make them as happy as we possibly can. It's going to be the easiest tool to build sites with and manage websites, yada, yada, yada. Guys, we got WordPress.org. Who's that for? Okay, well, this is, you gotta self-host this. There's already technical setup and implementation to using WordPress.org. The idea that we should take WordPress.org and say, well, that's for everybody too. It's just everybody. Come use it. No. WordPress.org is for developers and professionals. WordPress.com is for beginners and laymen. They already have those two architectures as a distinction. They're just not using it that way. It started out that way, I feel like, but they haven't gone that route. So for me, we have WordPress as a great CMS, great content management system. Let's put a builder layer on top of that is very much like a Bricks or Oxygen or something like that, or a Webflow that gives the user tremendous power. Let's invest in helping with education to lift up and elevate this industry. Right now, the industry, by the way, is racing to the bottom because of all of these tools saying, everybody come in, take WordPress.org technical people and try to make them build websites with Microsoft Word, this block editor that doesn't have any actual like web design functionality within it, until you add on all these other tools that I don't like. Why does it require generate? Why doesn't the block editor have a section element? Why doesn't it have an inner container element? Why doesn't it have a div? Why does it doesn't have the most basic building blocks of building a page? Now, to me, some people have argued, well, the Gutenberg team, the block editor team, doesn't want you building websites inside of the block editor. But then I look at it, but everybody is. All these people with Generate Press and Generate Block, they're all building full websites inside of the block editor. So there's clearly a disconnect there. Where does that disconnect come from? Well, it comes from not having a target user. We just go back to the original problem of we're for everybody, and we've got all these plugins, and you just do whatever you can try to do with it. It just seems like a recipe for an absolute mess. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now, is a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't agree with all of that, but that's fine. And I think part of that is, and I've had a bit of this, is being involved in the open. I've been involved in some of the training team stuff on WordPress.org, and just being involved in an open source project opened my eyes to how complex it is to run any kind of project in an open source environment. So what we see as muddle from the outside is actually kind of what you get with an open source project. It's really hard just to pull a lever here and this stuff happens down here, because it's not the nature of how this stuff works.
100%, which is why I would just say you need vision to the max of like, we are focused on a specific type of use, because then when people put in requests and people put in, because, I mean, I get feature requests all day long. And so the way that we determine whether a feature request is good is, number one, I build websites every single day of my life, so I just know if something's going to be useful or not. And number two, I'm looking at it from a vision standpoint of, this is what the tool is designed to do, and this is who it's designed to do it for. And it doesn't seem like that fits, or it does seem like that fits. And so I'm looking at a vision. So the minute you say our target user, which WordPress has literally said this, when our target user is everyone, you've started with a major problem. And that's a major vision and leadership problem, in my opinion. And it's very difficult to overcome that. And I just think that the experience that we're using right now is born out of a vision where everyone is the target user versus having an actual target user.
And maybe WordPress has never, ever had to take on a project of this size before as well, right? Like, WordPress has grown organically, and it's kind of pieced together different.
Evolved.
It didn't create the editor. It didn't bring the database. It's never had to do a project to this scale. And so this is a real test of open source, and it's a real test of WordPress, whether it can come through this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to what it was originally for, it was originally for blogging, right? It was like, hey, come create a blog, do your blog thing. And then it started to evolve into, we can actually use this to build a more robust content management system. And then if we put these builder layers on top of it, I mean, you could build entire sites with this thing, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it's open source, and it's got this giant ecosystem around it. I mean, what WordPress has accomplished, don't get me wrong, is like, tremendously valuable and tremendously impressive. But we also have, I think, a responsibility at some point. When you're powering 40% of the internet, and you are trying to continuously innovate, because there are other options. I mean, a lot of people left WordPress to go to Webflow. A lot of people left WordPress to go to Squarespace and Wix and all these other tools. And I think WordPress looks at that and they're like, that shouldn't be happening. Any good company is like, no, we got to keep people here. It just comes back to me of, hey, I just see opportunities that they're not taking advantage of, like the WordPress.com thing. I just don't think they're taking advantage of it. You can keep all the Wix and Squarespace people by sending them to WordPress.com and making them happy there. And then you can take all the technical developer type people and you can make them happy with WordPress.org. It just takes somebody in that leadership position to say, no, guys, let me remind everybody, we're not building a product for everyone. And like I said, they do have a lot of talented people and they do have a lot of money, and they could very easily tie all of this. Like what we're seeing is like, FSE is this whole environment over here, and block editor is a completely different environment. The dashboard and the backend's a completely different environment. It all looks different. It all behaves different. They could very well tie all of that together into a final, maybe, I feel like I've seen all the vision that they've published, right? But Whether they can actually pull that off is another story. But if they do, then like I said, I think that's a huge threat to page builders.
Yeah.
And so if they accomplish that goal, page builders better look out. And that's why, as somebody who's like, should I go into the page builder world or should I not go in? It's very tough to do that right now because I want to see how this FSC, everything with WordPress, I want to see how native really ties together. Because if they do tie it together, that's a big problem for page builders.
Which leads me to my final question. Thank you for teeing that up. Let's wind forward 2 years. Where are we at? Are we a block? Is it going to be consolidated? A block themes ruling the roost? Are they going to get that?
Are you saying look ahead 2 years?
Yeah. Look ahead 2 years. What's your prediction, Kevin?
I don't know. I don't, unless they tie it together very quickly here. I don't think 2 years is enough time to get everybody out of page builder land. Like I said, agencies they tend to move slowly in that regard because adopting a whole new process and a whole new environment is tough. It's very possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I would say 3 to 4 years. If they can manage to tie everything together, then yeah, you could see a completely different WordPress content ecosystem, agency ecosystem come in 3 to 4 years. But 3 to 4 years is like, always say this is like dog years. This is like that almost feels like 12 years from now. Like, or it's going to get here like, that fast. So like I tell clients all the time, oh, your website's 3 years old. That's like, it's like 12 years old, So yeah, it's going to be very, very, very interesting.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that one interesting. If you did, if you can hit the like button down below now, it would be amazing because it makes a huge difference in terms of how many people see this video. It really, really does. So thank you if you can hit that like button. Also, every time you do hit that like button, our cats get a little treat. If you want to see more videos just like this, hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified every time I release a new one. Keep well, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.